Hello and ho 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 here from Makai-World Reviews. It is I, not that North Pole demon, but more of a Faustian one in the Tono Micaiah, master of minds and of men. Now you may have noticed I'm a little late to the holiday game. That's okay, I was struck with another bout of my ongoing illness, but I did manage to get out all the videos promised from last month. It looks like I will be making it for this month too. But let's get down to it, holiday movies. We're going to start with one of my favorites, one I grew up with, in Scrooged. So hit subscribe, pull up that roaring fire on your TV, and let's tuck in. Scrooge, directed by Richard Donner, a man who isn't talked about enough in regards to great directors, and I don't know why. With The Omen, Superman, The Goonies, and Lethal Weapon on his list, as well as being executive producer on Tales from the Crypt, he certainly belongs up there with some of the heavy hitters. Written, obviously, this is a take on A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, but Mitch Glazer and Michael O'Donoghue have the screenplay credits. Both men involved have writing credits on Saturday Night Live, to the shock of no one with regards to this film. This stars Bill Murray, Ghostbusters, Caddyshack, Kingpin, Groundhog Day, The Royal Tenenbaums, Garfield movies. It's Bill Murray. Don't really need to say any more. And Karen Allen, probably for me, remembered the most for Animal House and the Indiana Jones franchise. A very competent actress that comes off as slightly awkward and stilted on occasion, what she leans into. The release date for this was November 23rd, 1988, and what came out the same week? They Live, an absolute gem and one of my favorite movies of all time. Roddy Piper kills yuppies. Who could ask for more? Also, one of the best fight scenes in movie history. And Cocoon, The Return, a sequel to a movie about old people and aliens that is held in reverence for some reason I never quite understood. But the sequel is, of course, a failure on almost all fronts. Moving over to the plot, we follow one Frank Cross, television executive and all-around dick. He is waging his job on A Christmas Night Spectacular, a live retelling of A Christmas Carol with Buddy Hackett and Mary Lou Retton. To sell this, he creates an incredibly dark promo, which includes things like murder, drug addiction, and terrorism. This causes some stirring within his inner circle, and one Elliot Loudermilk is fired and made destitute. Frank's moral center is his secretary Grace, mother of numerous kids whose youngest is mute because he witnessed his father being murdered. She is long-suffering but needs this job to survive and takes jabs at Frank whenever available. But Frank is cruel, cowardly, he steals calves from old ladies, he dismisses his brother's kindness, he ignores the homeless, accepts awards he doesn't deserve, and continues on his path of capitalistic self-destruction, until he is met by his old boss, his old dead boss, that is, Lou, who of course tells Frank he's been met by 3 ghosts, and it's really time to change his life. And after some abuse, Frank seems to understand a little bit at least. Not long after, he enters the cab of the first ghost, the one of Christmas past, and we learn of Frank's abusive home life. His father resents him, his mother tries her best, but it's TV that gives Frank a home. Families he saw and loved, and that in their own way loved him back. He disconnected from himself and into the world of TV. He worked his way up from mailroom clerk at the TV station. He gained some notoriety as a kids performer, gaining higher and higher reputation the more he put his personal life behind him. One of those things left behind was ex-girlfriend Claire. Frank tries to reconnect with Claire, but his own greed turns him away from her, and he meets the next ghost, that of Christmas Present, where we see Grace's family having a modest but very happy Christmas, his brother having a Christmas party that Frank did not attend, but was invited, and we see a homeless man Frank met earlier, now frozen to death. The meager few dollars he has for Frank could have prevented this. The ghost also beats the shit out of Frank, much to the amusement of everyone. Finally, the show goes on, the live Christmas Carol, and we see the return of Elliot Loudermilk here to murder Frank. But he is taken by the last ghost, a frightening figure of Christmas future, where we see Claire cold and indifferent to the people she once helped, Grace's son still mute locked away in an asylum, and Frank Cross dead, forgotten, without a mourner in sight. Well, Frank returns, convinces, nay, strong-arms Elliot into helping him, takes over the live production, and apologizes to everyone for all his misdeeds. He tells the world of a renewed faith in it, of love and hope and positive things. Claire arrives, and they embrace, and Grace's young son finally speaks in the longest time, saying, "God bless us, everyone." I had already mentioned this is based on Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, so let's tuck into it. As far as sending and directing goes, I'm usually pretty easygoing when it comes to comedies, but I don't need to be here. This is a nice-looking film in general. From high rises to tenement buildings to under the streets, it gives New York a lot of personality it rightly deserves. Every set looks nice. It looks exaggerated in the appropriate way, satirical way, but still realistic. It never falls into that awful, like, Tim Burton territory where nothing really makes sense. Sense of professionalism to this film that sometimes doesn't exist in comedies. So yeah, definitely a plus on both of those. As a Reagan-era satire a la RoboCop, although it takes a few steps back from the Peter Weller vehicle, it needs characters to get that point across. So let's go over some notable ones. Starting off, obviously, with Bill Murray as Frank Cross. This is totally and completely, unarguably, Bill's movie. He makes it in every single way. His command of being a total and complete dick who struggles against himself is convincing, as I think that may actually be Bill in real life. He's kind of a dick, but he's also a guy who appreciates people and has a good sense of humor. They take this 80s weak-willed capitalist and use it appropriately. He's smarmy, cowardly, cruel, obsessive, afraid to lose his spot, but he has memories of how things used to be. And you see him changing, however rapidly it may be, with the ghosts coming, and that's about as good as you're going to get from a movie like this with a relatively short runtime. You see him literally being happy that a promo that he made killed an old lady with a heart attack, and relishing in firing him, to having a breakdown about a dead man he could have helped. Bill's a great job, and literally outside of one person who I'll get to, he plays off every other character and actor perfectly. Alfre Woodard as Grace, easily the most likable character in the movie. She's tough, but she's not too proud to know what she has to do to take care of her kids. She cares about them more than her dignity. Though she tries to inject as much of her own moral standards into Frank's life as she can. Small things like giving Frank's brother a VCR for Christmas and not a logo towel. She struggles, but she lives within her means, and her kids love and appreciate the sacrifices she's made for them. She picks her daughter up instead of letting her on the subway, even though she had a long day at work. Her and her family, they play and they hug and laugh, and she supports her mute son in any way she can. And his speaking at the end, however cliche, was a wonderful moment. The ghosts, past, present, and future, Buster Poindexter, Carol Kane, and who cares who plays the future guy, he's all in a costume. All memorable. This is one of my favorite Christmas movies growing up, and these three are part of the reason. Buster is a cabbie who constantly gives Frank shit, calling out his parents' crap, his TV obsession. They even have a little bit of debate when Frank tries to tell about things that happen in his life, but it turns out it's just things he remembered from TV. I really like that. Carol is light with her squeaky voice and fairy costume, giving her a marked contrast with Buster's cabbie. And her and Bill's slapstick fighting is one of the highlights of the film. The horror of the future ghost is well done, with the monster having a genuinely scary look, a TV face, and people suffering behind his robes, though we see them singing Christmas carols later. Bobcat Goldthwait as Elliot Loudermilk is a bit part, but it played into all of the minimal strengths Bobcat has, from timid with an annoying voice to violent with an annoying voice. Just a fun character that got a Looney Tunes moment, ended up teaming with Frank rather quickly to help out in the conclusion. Along with him, I placed the homeless, one of which we saw pass on. Sadly, they are helped at Claire's shelter, one that she works at. And they think Frank is famous actor Richard Burton for reasons that I don't understand. I never understood this joke, and I still don't. Anyone want to help me out with this one? Let me know down below. Beyond that, Robert Meacham as Frank's current boss and John Forsythe as the Jacob Marlowe type character are both great. These titans of early Hollywood really knocked it out of the park with these small roles. Meacham being a cat-obsessed money grubber who, I have to say, hearing Robert Meacham say butthead is satisfying. And John is a dead man who Frank shoots at. He's holding a bottle of booze and he goes, "I don't mind you hitting me, but mind the Bacardi." And a mouse lives in his head. It's great stuff. John Glover is a character I didn't even mention in the movie. He should have had a bigger role in this as Frank's sort of like work antagonist, Bryce Cummings. John Glover is great, and he was great in this, despite the end of him getting essayed by a chronically abused standards and practice woman. Didn't really love that scene, but it was the 80s. Finally, Claire, played by Karen Allen, the worst character in the movie, by maybe a long shot. She had no chemistry with Bill, and her character was just plain Mary Sue type, who was so sweet, perfect, and etc. I don't blame her. I blame the script, and she's not really in the movie for that long, frankly. Not enough for us to give like a real shit about her, and I don't, frankly. She's there. She helps the plot along. Fine, whatever. Of course, several Murray brothers are in this, including John and Brian Doyle, to the shock of no one. The soundtrack, this is Danny Elfman in the 80s, along with Annie Lennox, Buster Poindexter, Kool Moe Dee, and more. Come on, this is just an awesome soundtrack. It lands as a Christmas soundtrack, and as a general movie soundtrack, it's just damn good. Overall, this movie has a lot to say about commerce and the holidays, although I think it didn't go far enough with it, but that's just me. It's a wonderful film that has the 80s nihilism slowly stripped away into something a lot more hopeful. I won't miss words here. The movie brought a lot of joy to me as a child and as an adult. I am fairly jaded, but my daughter loves Christmas, and maybe I'm learning to love it a little bit too. Well, that was Scrooged. What is your fave take on A Christmas Carol? Besides this, the correct answer is A Muppet Christmas Carol, of course. That has Michael Caine in it. But let me know down below. Also, add me on Instagram under Demon Peaks. Check out my Patreon where you can support this small channel for as little as $1. Subscribe, but more importantly, have a great day, a great week, and if you celebrate it, a great holiday. And I love you. This from the Etona Makai, Master of Minds and of Men. Goodbye.